New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Guided Selling from RingDNA makes your entire sales team more effective by revealing exactly what reps should do and when to do it. Guided Selling works by transforming sales data into a curated list of prioritized sales actions. So when reps start their day, they'll never again wonder which prospects and accounts or hot inbound leads to reach out to next. Guided Selling even shifts reps' priority in response to real-time buying signals. Finally, even new reps can sell like seasoned ones. Let RingDNA be your guide to success. Learn more at ringdna.com/guided selling. That's ringdna.com/guided selling.
It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 729 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. That's episode 729. Hey, I have another excellent episode lined up for you today. Joining me as my guest is Gaetano DiNardi. Gaetano is Director of Demand Generation at Nextiva. And we're going to touch on a lot of topics today. Sales training, high turnover rate in sales, search engine optimization, and hip-hop. Now, Gaetano, if you don't know, has a side hustle as a hip-hop artist. And you can check out his videos on LinkedIn and other places. And I absolutely love this. Look, I love sales, but we have a tendency to take it too seriously and sort of focus too much on it. And throughout my career, my experience has been that the most successful people I've known are those who have also cultivated some deep expertise or deep experience in something else, some other field completely, like music or writing, athletics, whatever. And research has borne this out as well. David Epstein writes about this in his new best-selling book, Range. And he talks about how experts, citing research, how experts in the fields typically have developed deep proficiency in some other pursuit. And he talks about Nobel Prize winners that are great artists or great musicians and so on. But basically, it's a lesson that applies to everyone. So I think you'll enjoy Gaetano's story about his music career, as well as some great insights about sales. Now, before we get to Gaetano, I want to welcome VanillaSoft as a new sponsor for Accelerate. I truly appreciate their support. VanillaSoft is the industry's leading sales engagement platform. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that you can eliminate sales lead cherry picking by reps. It means your reps will make more than 2 or 3 outreach attempts for every lead they get. It means each rep will actually follow an omni-channel cadence. Now, to help with that, you need to check out our ultimate guide to prospecting. Daniel Disney and Daryl Prale will show you how to combine cold calling with social selling for outrageous results. So you can get that ebook now at vanillasoft.com/Andy Paul. Hey, that's me. So that's vanillasoft.com/Andy Paul. All right, let's jump into it. Gaetano, welcome to the show.
Hey, Andy, thanks for having me, brother. It's a great pleasure. I've been a fan and follower of yours for a while, and I'm really honored to be here with you today, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's an honor to have you on the show. So before we get started, you have this second career, sort of maybe burgeoning career as a hip hop star, and you dropped some videos a couple weeks ago, music videos that you had done that professionally produce. So were you an aspiring artist, or are you still doing that and hoping to like make that your primary gig?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Hopefully he's saying that sincerely, but yeah.
yeah, man, for sure. So what many people don't know is I actually got into music at a young age, and I wouldn't be in marketing if it weren't for my music career. So long story short, I was in the industry pretty hardcore before I was like in this tech marketing world. And I was producing my own beats, making videos, writing songs, and I had some pretty good accolades under my belt. You know, I got to work with some really big artists in the game. Like I got on some records for Fat Joe, Shaggy, and many others that people would probably know.
I know Shaggy. I know Shaggy. I can't say I know Fat Joe, but yeah.
Fat Joe's a New York legend, a Bronx, New York legend.
Okay, all right.
And that's my hood.
All right.
So yeah, I was doing all that. And what I had realized also was that like this wasn't the kind of lifestyle that I just wanted to be like doing alone. Like I just didn't want to be, doing this rat race style life. Mm-hmm. And I wanted something that was also going to like challenge my brain, because music comes so effortlessly to me. But the challenge with it is that there's no path like to say from A to Z that shows you exactly what the steps are. So I started a music blog, and I started just writing articles about companies that I didn't think were doing ethical things. Mm-hmm. And out of nowhere, my blog was getting all this traffic and all these comments. And I knew it was getting traffic because it was getting comments from people that I had no idea who they were.
Right.
And I, for shits and giggles, one day I installed Google Analytics, and I'm like, let me see how all this shit works, man. And I was realizing like, oh my gosh, this is getting 5,000 hits, a month, all through SEO. Like I stumbled backwards into it because I realized people were searching, music company name, mm-hmm. scam, or reviews.
Right.
And mine was coming up for that. And I basically realized that I had like inadvertently taught myself SEO, and I really liked the idea of building stuff and people finding it rather than me having to go outbound and promote it, because mm-hmm. with music, there's no SEO. Like I can't do, best songwriter in New York, or, best new, Italian trap song or something like that. Like no one's really going to find it. But with SEO, you can create things that your customers want, that your prospects want. And this was very appealing to me. I was really tired of doing all this outbound with my music stuff to try to promote it.
Right.
So long story short, I met this guy, Michael King, who was starting up an SEO agency. He was one of the top guys in SEO at the time, still is. And I was the second person hired at his agency in New York. My test project for the job was to present the strategy behind my music. Like mm-hmm. how did I, like everything from how much did it cost to make this project? How much did you spend on ads? What are your YouTube analytics stats looking like? How did you plan to go to market with this? What was your target audience for this, et cetera, et cetera? What were the results, right? Because I had put out a couple of my own albums that he had saw. And he was also an independent musician at the time. Coming from a past life. So we had that in common. So he gave me a shot. My first big project was Major League Baseball. And I'll tell you the truth, I didn't really know what the hell I was doing. He threw me into the deep end, and, I just figured this shit out. And
that's the way we learn.
Yeah, exactly. So fast forward to present day, I'm running demand generation at Nextiva, but it wouldn't have been possible if, I didn't get my start in music. And to answer your question, do I want to make that my main gig? I actually don't want to be like in the spotlight or, mm-hmm. On tour or like, Justin Bieber or anything like that. I have zero desire.
Well, you'd have to dye your hair for one.
Yeah, I'd have to, do all that. But I have zero desire to do that. However, what I really want to do, and I don't see this being like, take over my marketing career or life, but I do want to continue producing, being a studio rat, as they call it, behind the scenes kind of guy. And during my downtime, I want to be able to work with, great artists and make great music. And, it's a passion of mine. And I talk very openly about it in the business world. I have nothing to hide. And I'm starting a community called Musicians in Tech that is hopefully going to bridge the gap between the tech industry and music. So
cool.
That's
cool.
where it's at, man.
Well, I mean, I think besides just being fascinating, seeing somebody reach a high level with one of their passions that's in addition to business, I think it's just a great lesson for people in general is that if you want to succeed in life, is you don't want to be single-threaded, right? There's increasing research coming out, books written, a recent book called Range by David Epstein, talking about why generalists triumph in a specialized world, is talking about how people who have passions and interests that are much broader than work generally come out on top. So good lesson for people that are paying attention to that. So hey, one of the first things I want to talk about, because you worked at Sales Hacker for a while and are exposed to sales community and still are, is about a number of articles just recently about the high rate of turnover in sales. And salespeople, sales managers, VPs. I mean, I think VPs average turnover is about once every 18 months. Sales reps 12 to 14 months.
It's high.
Yeah, roughly extremely high. So
yeah.
Just interested on your take on that, and maybe dive into that a little bit.
Sure.
Well, so what do you think is causing it?
Sure. I think a lot of times VPs of sales managers, they are up against incredible growth pressure, and if you're in this VC SaaS world, you're certainly going to feel that. Mm-hmm. And to me, it comes down to like process. Like if the sales process is really plateauing or struggling in a way, and that VP of sales or sales manager is going to have to come up with new ways to kind of break through some of those challenges that are happening, and the expectations are like unreasonable, and there's misalignment with C-level. It's got all the things that are ripe for this to happen. Even when it comes down to, I would say, alignment with the marketing team, that's another huge thing. And it all depends on what stage the company is in, of course, and, all these other things. But I would say that some of the key things are unrealistic expectations from leadership, poor training on the front lines. That seems to be one of the biggest problems right now. People just don't know how to sell. I see that in my own company. I see it in other companies as well. And
so let's dive in
marketing alignment support as well.
All right, so let's dive into some of those, because I think that this whole idea of the unrealistic expectations and several of the things that you brought up is we're caught in these sort of vicious cycles. It's and they become self-reinforcing. 18 months is way too short of a time, realistically, for a VP to have significant lasting impact on a sales organization, if you're selling anything of any complexity. But that's sort of the way as you said, that's what the expectations are. And that just flows down. It's like, okay, well, we do a horrible, crappy job of training our salespeople at company XYZ, but it's not worth spending anymore because they're all going to leave in 12 months.
Exactly.
But hey, they're all going to leave in 12 months because they don't see any opportunity for growth and not being trained, and they don't know how to do their jobs.
It leaves them in an unfair catch-22. It all like you said, it depends on complexity of the sales cycle and the model. Like my current company now, Nextiva, we're very heavy inbound sales, inbound marketing, inbound sales. And most of the pressure, I'll tell you, is on marketing to generate leads, man. Right. Like it's on me. I take my shit, really seriously, man. Because if I'm not fulfilling my leads and my responsibilities to the sales team, people aren't going to eat out there. And of course, there's always inefficiencies. When it comes to the inbound model, it's really about plugging up leaky gaps and leaky buckets. And there's always inefficiencies in the sales side that can be fixed. But ultimately, if it's an inbound model, guess what? Marketing, it's your ass. Mostly.
Sales still needs to execute.
Still needs to execute on it. Yes.
I've never seen a marketing organization who's batting 1,000 on highly targeted qualified leads coming in. It's still casting a fairly wide net. So sales still has to do their job, even if marketing's doing an excellent job. We don't aren't quite in this utopian era where every lead coming in is a great lead. Hopefully we'll get there at some point.
We'll get there someday.
Yeah. As I tell people, I think, the ideal world for sales would be sales doesn't have to do outbound, that inbound's so good.
Yeah.
That they can spend their time actually selling. But
that's how it was at Sales Hacker. And I'm not tooting my own horn by any means. It was a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
But at Sales Hacker, it was very little outbound, if any.
Mm-hmm.
It was all inbound, referrals, and events.
Right.
And social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if you can do it, great. I mean, there's some people out there who have written books and say, no. A lead you develop yourself is always going to be better than an inbound lead. And, there's no data to support that at all.
Yeah.
I was on a webinar once with a guy who made that claim. I was like, you can't say that. I mean, he said, the lead you develop yourself closes with a higher transaction value and they close at higher rates. And it's like, nah, I've been in sales 40 years, and I've closed deals from $2,000 to close to $100 million, and that's just not the case.
I see what they're coming from. I think I get what they're trying to say with that. I think they're trying to say that there's a correlation between the amount of effort, initiative, and accountability that you take as a rep, the relationship, and kind of that trust that you build within that lead, whether or not you quote unquote develop it yourself, like you said, is up for debate. But
but that's a great point though, and I think there's such a lack of truthfulness among many thought leaders about this whole idea about how leads are generated and originated. Because there are times I might have gotten a call from a prospect, but chances are I'd called them before. Maybe I'd run into a trade show. They'd read one of our ads somewhere. I mean, it's like, okay, where do you attribute that to? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, there's some combination of proactive marketing and inbound. I think on a high fraction of the leads that actually turn into deals. Mm-hmm. I think if people are honest with themselves, but people point of view they have to protect. So whatever.
There you go.
So this idea on turnover is though it's want to pursue that path because I think that's something that's really needs to be addressed seriously, and I don't see companies doing it. So one is we talked about training. Is just interested in your opinion. I quite frankly I don't see any company, and granted I don't know the whole universe of companies out there, but from Fortune 500 companies I work with to SaaS startups and tech startups. No one does a good job. No one is really committed, in my estimation, to training and educating their sellers. They just look at them as disposable resources. And if this one doesn't work, I'll go find another one. Mm-hmm. That's what do you think is the key to changing that mindset with companies?
That's
excuse me.
Monumental challenges around that. The way.
I figured you'd be the guy to answer that.
I'll tell you, like you said, something has to change at some point because, what's that quote? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Mm-hmm. Even at my company, for example, we're starting to make training a bigger initiative now because, we're realizing that the only way we're going to be able to really break this next layer of plateauing is by selling better. A lot of the call, marketing, we don't have to do this, but I encourage my team to do it. I do it. I'm one of the few people in marketing that do this. I listen to sales calls every day.
Sure.
And I'm not doing it necessarily from, audit perspective where I have to call out the sales reps on everything that they're doing poorly. But when I do come across something crazy, which I do sometimes, like this is going to be really funny, but I heard a sales rep say on a call, hey, Mr. Prospect, our CEO is a billionaire. He has plenty of money, so you don't have to worry about us trying to just get your money. We're much more than so I'm like, so this is the narrative that this person is.
This is the Donald Trump narrative for
right. Like this. So this is going to make a prospect say, "Wow, this company really has the solution to my problem. Their CEO has a lot of money. Yeah, great."
They're not. They're not trying to cheat me. Yeah.
Right. So like when I hear things like that happening, it's just very clear that this rep has not been trained in a very long time. They don't have their talking points together. They don't review their battle cards. They don't know how to sell based on value. They don't know how to, communicate current state to future state. These are all very, basic fundamental things within sales that, reps just are missing. And that comes down to obviously training and management. And then, who's training the managers is the other question. It's like, if these managers need training too, they're not just the end all be all authority on sales. I get that they're more experienced than maybe the junior SDRs or BDRs that are out on the front lines, but, it's got to be executive push. They've got to wake up and smell the coffee and say, we're struggling here. We've got to figure out a way to, one, clean up our sales enablement content library and our ammunition that we're giving the sales team out there on the field. That's one part of it. The other part of it is kind of the tactical sort of, let's listen to some calls. Let's see where we're dropping the ball. If you have a lot of money as a company, maybe you can deploy a tool like Gong or Chorus and start doing sales analyzation through your calls that way. You could try to use technology as a way to band-aid some of this shit, but if you ain't got the fundamentals right, a tool like Outreach or SalesLoft is not even going to save you. So I think it's got to be driven from the executive level down, and they've got to just make it a priority and make it happen.
No matter where your sales team is working from, RingDNA can enable them to be more productive and effective. RingDNA offers a complete platform for remote sales teams that gives reps the tools they need to connect with more prospects and create more opportunities and drive more revenue no matter where they're working from. And managers can get real-time insight they need to coach reps to success. Win more deals from anywhere on the planet with RingDNA. Learn more about how RingDNA helps remote teams at ringdna.com/remote work. That's ringdna.com/remote work.
New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, no disagreement with that. I think that I look at it slightly differently because I think that the problem is that we look at this as an issue of training versus an issue of learning. And I think that perspective is sort of the problem. It's almost like the perspective of saying sales is something we do to a prospect versus something we do with them, right? I mean, that's a fundamental different way of looking at sales. If you think selling is always something you do to someone, then this is where we get the stereotypical bad image of sales, right? Sales is forcing themselves upon a prospect, whereas something we're working on collaboratively to reach a certain outcome, hey, that's a different perspective. And if the seller has that perspective, that's great. And I think the same thing is true with managers when they look at training as, yeah, it's something I'm going to do twice a year. Hey, I'm going to hire Andy to come in and speak at our sales kickoff event, as opposed to I'm going to set aside 15, 20 minutes every single day. And we're going to either read books collectively. I mean, I offer a service to companies. It's a sales team book club. You know, where
I love
the whole sales team, we read 10 books during the year, and I lead online discussion groups and so on. But they're all engaged at a certain amount of time per day in learning. And maybe it's not reading a book. Maybe it's, hey, the boss says this week I want everybody to listen to this podcast featuring Gaetano, and we're going to talk about it next Monday. And you have a week to listen to 30 minutes. So spend 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
but we don't emphasize learning. We emphasize, these point solutions. And to me, that seems to be the fundamental mindset change that needs to take place, because one's you're sending a message to your sellers, hey, we're investing in you. If we're doing something we think is important enough to do every day, as opposed to gathering the team together for 3 days once a year, then I don't know. You tell me, doesn't the salesperson think that's a different message they're receiving from the company?
Exactly. I mean, it's it's much more worthwhile to do something like you just suggested, where the team is reading some books and comes together and discusses learnings, and then put some of those potential learnings on paper and say, what can I actually try on my next call?
Exactly.
What can I try during my next sales cycle? What can I do to impact quota this month that I learned as a result of this book? And the reps coming together and sharing that knowledge, rather than, you said, going on a President's Club trip where they just go to Dominican Republic and get wasted on a beach somewhere. I mean, that's fun, but
well, I was even thinking of sales kickoff meetings. I mean, I for one, as I do presentations at sales kickoff meetings, but I've stopped bidding on the sales kickoff. I'll say, okay, here's the deal. I'll do a sales kickoff, but you have to commit, the client, to a minimum of 4, let's say, webinars that are reinforcement webinars.
Oh, I
so
like
every
that.
quarter we'll go through it. And I've had clients say, yeah, okay, great. So they pay me for it, and I'll come present, but then they never do the follow-on webinars.
Oh man,
And it's like,
so
you realize
you paid for it, man.
You realize you paid for this, right? But it's like, I had one client tell me, my sales team doesn't think sales training works. That's a quote.
Oh man,
from a VP,
a
VP of sales enablement at a very well-known SaaS company said, my sales team doesn't think sales training works. Which, they're right. He should have been listening to him. But it doesn't. But I thought it was interesting. He took his cue from them.
Wow, man. I mean, and something else you said, Andy, hits me pretty hard too. I remember when I was coming up hard in the marketing game, I took that extra hour a day to read blogs, to attend webinars on my own time.
Yeah, right.
On my own time.
I'm self-trained. Yeah.
Yeah, to learn, man. Like, I have a degree in marketing, but I didn't learn squat in school. So, So anyway,
well, some people think the answer these days is that the increasing number of universities are coming up with degrees in sales, and it's just like your experience with marketing is, you took the courses, but you're gonna have to come and learn everything from scratch again. And I gave a talk to a sales class at a university several months ago, and less than a third of the people in the class were even intending to go into sales.
Oh man, they're just fulfilling their credit requirement or something.
Well, they're getting a degree in it, but they don't plan to do it. So
yeah,
I mean, I got a degree in history. I'm not a historian, so I guess that's fair.
There you go. Yeah. So like with salespeople, you've got to do the same thing. Like you've got to make, like you said, Andy, learning as part of like your regimen, and you've got to prioritize it. And it really comes down to like, are you in sales just trying to get a paycheck? Like that's what I also see a lot happening nowadays. Like there's people in sales that aren't passionate about selling. They're there, or their customers or their prospects, they're there because they either need a foot in the door into some organization and they want to go lateral into some other department. They just don't know how to get in. Sales is always considered like that first quote unquote barrier to entry. Or they're just there temporarily, kind of just going through the motions, getting a paycheck. Maybe they have some other plans for their career in the future, and they're just kind of there, just kind of going through it, but they don't really have a desire to make sales a real career.
Yeah, or they think that they're there just long enough to find that next better sales job. And there was a great quote I read online recently on LinkedIn. Someone was talking about how he said, the problem with a salesperson, a lot of sellers these days, is after 10 years, they change jobs so frequently that they don't have 10 years worth of sales experience. They have 10 first years worth of sales experience.
Oh, man.
And I thought that was actually brilliant. Yeah, I think that is, I'm not against people changing jobs. I was of a generation of sort of the first. I'm old enough to remember when people criticized me for only being in jobs for 2.5, 3 years with startups before moving to the next one, to being criticized once after I'd started my own company, I got called by a big company to come in and look at a general manager job for a new division they were starting. And the recruiter criticized me for being at my last job too long. But so I've seen the full cycle of things.
Yeah.
But 1 year is too short. I mean, if you look at, doesn't matter how transactional your sale is, but if you have anything with any sort of degree of complexity and, a nice 60, 90-day sales cycle, you don't have enough turns at bat during that time to say, yeah, I know what I'm doing here.
No.
And why you get hired at the next job is beyond me. But let's just start with that. Is you got to be realistic and say, look, maybe I'm better off staying an extra year or two and really mastering what I'm doing here, because then I can take that to my next company and the track record and say, yeah, now pay me even more, right? Because I'm worth more because I'm going to deliver more. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the low sort of, hey, I'm just waiting around for the next better sales job is, it's not a good way to go. I would totally recommend, like you said, Andy, mastering, one facet of sales before trying to, move on and tackle the next thing. That's how it was for me in my marketing career. Like, I wasn't trying to learn social advertising, SEO, content marketing, analytics, coding, design. I wasn't trying to do all these things at once. I was being very, very focused at mastering one aspect of marketing at a time. And I think, sales should follow the same path as that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I look back at my career, which, first 25 years was working for other companies and since then for myself. But where I had the biggest growth opportunities and where I actually grew the most and achieved the most was those instances where I showed patience and stayed, where it's tempting to go, but then I was like, yeah, but maybe I'm on the cusp of really learning something here, which is what my motivation always was. And it wasn't money. It was about what's the situation I can be in where I can really learn something.
Exactly.
And somebody I can learn something from, as in terms of a boss and so on. And when I stayed an extra 2 years in some cases, or in one case, an extra 3 or 4 years. Yeah, the payoff was huge.
Exactly. And, one actionable tip I'll leave for your audience listening is if you're in one of these like junior roles in sales right now, or even mid-level, and you're just kind of like, you need something to look forward to in order to stay longer. One thing I've always thought about is like, what can I publicize about what I'm doing right now? What kind of case studies can I produce on myself?
So personal brand development.
Yeah, exactly. So you can take, hey, my last 60-day sales cycle, I was doing all this. This is my process. And now for this 60-day sales cycle, I'm trying something completely different. Here's what the outcomes were, on process A versus process B that I tried. Maybe I, mixed up my sales and cadence mix a little bit differently on this cycle or whatever the case may be. Look for interesting things that you can do experiment wise that you can document and share with the world, because it's going to give you something to look forward to. And it's going to give you some personal accountability to challenge yourself and say, I got to put out this super kick-ass case study that the LinkedIn community is going to appreciate. Then I can hit up somebody like Andy Paul and say, hey, Andy, could I be on your podcast and share, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, no,
so tie the brand building back to it, because you won't just be some soulless person at a SaaS company trying to sell shit. You'll be somebody that has some kind of project that is tied to their role and their personal brand that they can be proud of, share with the world, and it's going to make things a little bit more interesting. So.
Well, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that for people. And this is obviously another topic that's very controversial, because people, again, certain quote unquote experts saying, look, salespeople should never be creating content. They should just be, selling. And you're laughing at that. But I happen to agree with you. I think that if you're in sales, when I get a call from a salesperson about anything, usually when I'm still on the phone, I'm on their LinkedIn profile. And so I want to know if they have a point of view about something, or if, as you said, they're just some nameless drone somewhere who's banging phone calls. And if somebody actually has a point of view, they have a personality, and they bring that to the work, well, I think that's hugely important. So I second what you talked about. I think if you're an individual contributor, that you need to be thinking about this idea about building your brand, because it is a differentiator. You as a salesperson are still the front line of differentiation, more so than your product and service, because, hey, most of them are commodities. So what are you doing to make yourself different in the eyes of your buyers? And a lot of that will take place when you're face-to-face like we are here over video, or actually in person, heaven forbid.
Yeah.
But, do something to make yourself stand out. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a task if you really, as your point earlier, if you really are passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, buyers like me, I'll tell you, I'm a technology buyer, so I'm really good at giving the buyer's perspective to your audience. I'm sure most of your audience is sellers, but I can give you a really good take on the buyer's perspective. I get, when you put demand generation in your title on LinkedIn, it's like, there's blood out there and the sharks are, the vultures are, they're swooping down looking to just get you. And I get pitched a lot, man. I probably get 50 to 100 pitches a month in that range, which is a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah. And
it's pretty high. And, I've taken very, 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 very few meetings, but buyers like me, what I will do when a salesperson hits me up, if the outreach is decent, like, first of all, if it's automated in any way, I'll automatically delete it. I don't care. If the only way I wouldn't is if it was like the perfect timing for something I needed right then, and it was the highest priority, but that never happens, right? Like, when does that ever happen? That you better get so lucky as a salesperson if that happens, right? That never happens. Most of the time, no one's out there looking for your solution. It's not a need. You're interruptive, et cetera, et cetera. If it's a halfway decent piece of outreach that is personalized, it's not automated, and it's something I kind of need, and it's somewhere on my priority list, I'll at least give their LinkedIn profile a look, like you said. And if that LinkedIn profile has no personality, they're not sharing content, they're not contributing to threads,
they don't have a picture.
Yeah, that's automatic.
Which is just crazy. It still stuns me till today.
It still happens.
Yeah, the number of salespeople, when they send me something, they send me a pitch, I look at their LinkedIn profile, and one of two faults as far as I'm concerned. One is it's too highly produced a photo, a glamour shot, either of male or female, or there's no photo at all. And it's like, I don't need a prom picture. I just, just who are you?
Yeah, do you have a soul?
Right.
So, I think all companies should require reps before they get, out there on the field to have like a LinkedIn profile makeover. Like, it's not hard. That should be part of the requirement. You shouldn't have a profile that just states your past roles and no picture with no descriptions under the roles. Like, you should have, at least all-star level, as LinkedIn tries to call it, completeness on your profile, because it does make a difference. Buyers like me we really want to, check for credibility and see if we can trust you and if you're legit. So we're going to look at your profile, and any little thing that stands out as weird or this person doesn't seem legit. If they have too many buzzwords in their headline, like lead generation expert and, lion, which I don't know what that means.
I see it all the time, and it always makes me skeptical.
Yeah, it makes me skeptical, like, whatever. Another thing I really hate is, like, if I see in the description just like a bunch of bullet points with, like, go to market strategy accomplishments, and like, it's just like all these, like, robotic things, but it doesn't actually have a story. I'll just say, this person's probably bogus. It doesn't seem legit. They're trying way too hard to seem credible. I'll pass.
Yeah, well, I think sort of summing up some of this is, and we are sort of reaching the end of time, but is authenticity is really, really important. And this is something that it's just, we'd mentioned earlier, it's just be you, right? But also,
you're big on this.
And also have a point of, because I think the reason I'm big on it is because, contrary to a lot of people, I firmely believe, and my experience has shown me, and experience of many others I've worked with has shown me, is that we as individuals, we are the difference makers in sales.
Totally.
And it doesn't matter how great a tool you're selling. I mean, there's some occasions, maybe you get lucky, you're working for some unicorn where the product is flying off the shelves, quote unquote. But, maybe we all get fortunate once in a while to work for a company like that. But the rest of the time working for something, we actually have to sell. Right? And so if we actually have to go out and sell, it's about you.
Yeah.
And, this old adage about the customer buys you, that is still largely true.
I agree 100%, dude. I mean, our inbound model right now proves that, right? Like, you can, like, a lot of the leads are the same. They come from the same sources. If a lead came from this one affiliate source, we have a couple affiliate sources, And we have a few affiliates that are like really high quality leads. Like, if they're coming from this source, that they're ready. Like they want to be sold to. They're ready to go. And like you said, it comes down to the individual. One individual with that lead may crush it. Another individual may totally bomb. And it's the same level of interest, came from the same source, same timeline, same decision maker profile, right? And it's just, like you said, it comes down to the individual. Sometimes the individual just misses the bar, misses the mark. And that's just what happens.
Well, I think this is another reason why I'm so focused on this idea of learning versus training, is that training is really an attempt in almost all cases is to take square pegs and fit them into round holes, and is to make everybody somewhat the same, right? I want to be the McDonald's of sales. I want the buyer experience to be identical from all my salespeople. And the fact is, it's just not going to happen because sellers are human; they're individuals. So the thing is to be the best version of yourself. Take this learning and develop your own skills, your own capabilities, your own personality, your own strengths and weaknesses, and unfortunately, that makes, especially in sectors like SaaS, it makes the sales managers really nervous because they're driving everything by the metrics, and if they're driving by the metrics, I need you to act this way to get this done. Don't act on your own. And the key to success in sales is being the best version of yourself, and it doesn't have to be the same person. I had one client. Well, actually, I was running sales on a fractional basis for a few years for this one client, and hugely successful inbound. This was a fairly technical product, sold 35 to 60K, combination of hardware, software, and as test equipment. And their number one salesperson was, and hopefully he's not listening, but this is not an insult, but guys, pathologically shy.
Okay.
But he was himself, and he was credible, and he knew the product, he knew the customers, he knew how they used it inside and out. He could do incredible discovery, and I could pass him by the hall. Really, the fourth year I was working at the company, we could pass in the hall, and he couldn't say hi to me because he was so shy. But man, he was just a rock star with sales.
That's so cool.
And if you had interviewed him, you would never in a million years have hired him in sales. We brought him over from engineering inside the company.
Wow.
But so there's no one template for success. It's you're building your personal brand. That means you focus.
I have one question for you, and
sure.
Maybe before we sign off here, I was thinking about this a lot. I have a really really strong friend in sales. He's a strong seller. Won't name him or call him out, but he's also a poker player.
Yeah.
And he has this notion that sales is a lot like poker in that there's variance in sales, just like there's variance in poker. So he feels like, you may be an 80% favorite to win a deal, for example. Mm-hmm. And sometimes like you just get the bad beat, you don't flop the nuts or whatever you want to call it.
Whatever that means. Yes.
In poker terms, it means like, you flop the set or something like that, or you got a really good flop that benefits you and puts you in a favorite position. But the way he broke it down to me the other day was that, just sometimes like, you may have pocket kings and you may lose to pocket aces on the river. Mm-hmm. Even though you were the favorite the whole time. He says sales is the same way, that there's variance in sales, and you're just going to go through these times where deals are going to get ripped out from under you at the last minute, and with maybe minimal explanation as to why. Deals could fall through the crack at any moment, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you played your hand perfectly. Do you agree with this, or do you disagree with this? What do you think?
Well, sort of agree. So, I mean, I've talked before about deals that I've lost that I thought we had won, and to your example, just sort of at the last minute, and in retrospect, when you go back and analyze, it's like, okay. So there's one deal we were selling to this huge media company. We were going against an incumbent. It was for a huge satellite network, and we were the best solution by far. And then we were told, actually, pretty conclusively, we were going to get the deal, and then we didn't. And at the end, the decision makers decided, I guess they had been playing us all along. It seemed like, in retrospect, to get a better get a better deal out of their incumbent. We probably should have found that out. We thought we had asked. We thought we had found out. We thought we had done everything we thought we could. Clearly, we hadn't done. There could have been more we had done. But that's that's a great lesson. I think is that things happen that are out of your control. That you can only do the best of your ability. The thing is, how do you get better, right? It's how do you take the lessons you've learned and apply them in the future so that situations like that don't arise again. And the fact is, they will, right? You can you're dealing with human beings, and human beings are not completely predictable. And this is it drives me nuts about so much of what people want to project about sales, especially we have a whole book called Predictable Revenue. Not really. I mean, maybe in certain transactional things it'd be predictable, but and overall it can be predictable. The individual transactions aren't necessarily. You can just do the best you can do. The key is getting better so that you narrow the range of uncertainty. And I think I love that. And I think that's really the mark of a good salesperson is you're narrowing that range of uncertainty in the deals and the opportunities you're working. And never completely goes away though. So you can, and you had sellers work for me that have done fabulous jobs on deals that were big deals, that were important deals that we should have got that, something happened at the last minute that was unpredictable. It could have been, one case was an earnings report that was unexpected. The company was caught by surprise. So fortunately, it just delayed it for 6 months as opposed to completely derailing it. But those things happen. So I think it's what's really important for sellers is to be aware of the fact and be sensitive to the fact that these things can happen. As I said, through experience, through learning, is, as I'm sure your friend is, he's paying close attention to these potential variances, the potential variables that could affect the outcome, and do what you can to work against it.
Exactly. And I think the final point on that is don't just throw your hands up in the air if you're a salesperson and say, there's variance, there's nothing we can do. Whatever. I like how you said it, narrow the variant potential there by becoming better.
The range of uncertainty. Yeah. Exactly.
Become better and learn and, do your best and to up your skills and narrow that gap as much as possible.
Well, and I think part of that too is that one of the areas we're letting sellers down in these days, and I say we collectively, I like to think I'm helping them in this regard, is there's not enough emphasis placed on winning. And there's a lot of emphasis on the process. And if we just execute the process, we're going to close X percentage of our deals, as opposed to saying, well, let's start with the assumption we're going 100% and work backwards, right? Right. And teach and educate our sellers about the things that it takes to actually win a piece of business. And there's very little consciousness, I find, among sellers about things that they do deliberately to help them actually win. And I think this is, and part of it is what I just talked about, is this not really seeing themselves on this continuum of continually getting better, right? And being able to narrow that range of uncertainty and do the things that win. That's really important. I wrote about this yesterday. I said, in my email that goes out to my subscribers, is that you want to get to the point where you can learn how to sell savagely well. I just love that expression. I saw that expression recently. Is you just want to be completely determined to learn how to do it incredibly well. And you're not going to win every deal still, but you're going to win a much higher fraction of them. And that's really what it's all about. So
I mean, to that point, we've got a guy at Nextiva that we call the buzzer beater. And this guy always hits quota at the last minute on the last day. And I listened to his tonality. I listened to some of his calls from the earlier part of the month compared to the end. I'm like, dude, if you could have this level of focus and intensity at the beginning of the month compared to the end, you would smash it every single time. Why is it at the end of the month, you're calling people in the not ready to purchase queue, or, they said that they need more time. You follow up with them and then they say, I just don't think I'm ready to make a decision right now. I think I may even go with a competitor. I think I'm good right now. Thank you very much. And this guy is able to fight through that and close it.
Right.
When they clearly said, no, I'm not interested. Nah, I think I'm going to go somewhere else. He is able to do it.
So ask him this question. So when he was in college, when did he write his term papers?
That's a good one.
Right? If he wrote his term papers on the night before they were due, then you got the answer to your question. Why it's always the last week of the month.
He's just a last minute Larry.
He just puts it off.
Yeah.
And he can't get motivated until the stakes are really high. And I have to admit, I was sort of that same way myself in college. Sort of a little bit of a procrastinator, do things at the last minute, and probably did some of that in sales as well. But it's you can find out, and it's worth knowing. If he's that way, then he can be coached to say, let's work on this, because this is not something that can't be changed. And what he's doing in this case, if he's leaving everything at the last minute, is if he had maybe level loaded the activity and his intensity, maybe he could be 1.1 or 1.2x what he's doing now.
Right.
Because clearly has the capability. So coaching opportunity for your VP of sales.
There you go.
All right. Well, Gaetano, we'll have to do this again, because I know we didn't get to everything we wanted to talk about, but this has been fun.
Dude, this has been awesome. I always love talking to you. I feel like I love that it's a two-way convo, and I always pick up little gems and nuggets from you, Andy. So it's been a pleasure, man.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. And people are out there. Well, first of all, tell people how they can get in touch with you. I'm sorry, I forgot that. And then also tell them where they can see your music.
Yeah, man. So LinkedIn, you can see it all. It's all there.
It is.
It's all there. So just hit me up on LinkedIn.
Maybe the only music video on LinkedIn, I think.
There's some people trying to do it, but they can't quite do it the way your boy does it, Andy. So just search me on LinkedIn, Gaetano DiNardi, and you'll see all my content. Articles I've written, SEO stuff, content, sales enablement, and then, of course, music videos. Check it out.
Perfect. All right. Gaetano, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Have a good one, man.
Okay, friends, that was Accelerate for the week. First of all, as always, I want to thank you for joining me. And I also want to thank my guest, Gaetano DiNardi. That was so much fun. So join me again next week as my guest will be Chris Spurvey. Chris is the author of It's Time to Sell, Cultivating the Sales Mindset, as well as CEO of Chris Spurvey Consulting. And Chris and I will be talking about personal growth in sales, how to effectively build relationships, how to experiment to develop a sales style that works for you, and the steps you need to take to become the very best version of you. So be sure to join us then. Now, before you go, don't forget to check out The Sales House. The Sales House is my personal growth training platform for B2B sellers just like you. Personal growth and professional development all in one place. So for more information, visit thesaleshouse.com. That is thesaleshouse.com. Look forward to seeing you there. All right, thanks again for joining me. Until next week, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
RingDNA is the leading sales enablement platform that uses AI to help scale business growth. Trusted by the top companies across the globe, RingDNA offers a suite of powerful tools for every sales role. The RingDNA Dialer radically improves sales productivity and call connection rates, while guided selling helps reps know exactly what to do and when to do it. Conversation AI uses artificial intelligence to surface the most impactful coaching opportunities in real time. So, no matter where your team is working from, the RingDNA platform can help them exponentially increase call connections, opportunities, and revenue. Learn more at ringdna.com/platform. That's ringdna.com/platform.